Imagine for a second that you were watching one of those beautifully shot nature documentaries.
Oh, right, like one of the really high-budget BBC ones.
Exactly, and the camera like pans up into the dense forest canopy, right?
Yeah.
And it zooms in on a chimpanzee.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
And what is this chimp doing? It's, casually hanging from a branch, peeling a piece of fruit, but it's manipulating that fruit entirely with his feet.
Yeah, just gripping it and turning it as easily as we would with our hands.
Right. Now, I want you to imagine, if you had that kind of biological dexterity, picture yourself sitting at your desk right now, underlining a textbook with your hands, while simultaneously making a perfectly neat stack of study flashcards with your feet.
I mean, that would certainly change the way we look at office productivity, wouldn't it?
It really would.
But, mechanically speaking, it's not an absurd visual. When you look at the raw structural blueprint of the primate foot, it heavily mirrors the anatomy of the human hand.
Wait, really?
Oh, yeah. The foundational materials, the bones, the general layout, are actually strikingly similar across the evolutionary tree.
But obviously, you and I can't write flashcards with our toes.
Sadly, no.
So at some point, our evolutionary ancestors made this massive physiological trade-off. We sacrificed that incredible dexterous grasping ability of the primate foot, right? We basically gave up the foot hand to gain something that arguably defined our entire species, which is bipedalism.
Yeah.
The ultimate anatomical machinery for walking upright.
That is the pivotal moment. I mean, we traded arboreal grasping for a biological structure completely dedicated to bipedal locomotion. And mechanistically, it is just a phenomenally successful transition.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Okay.
Because today the mission of this deep dive is to explore the absolute engineering marvel that is the human foot and ankle.
It really is a marvel.
It is. And this is a structure that you rely on every single day that you probably take completely for granted until the exact moment you step off a curb wrong and roll your ankle.
Right, then you're very aware of it.
Exactly. So we're going to look at how we traded those climbing feet for walking feet and what that actually cost us.
I'd invite you, the listener, if you're, in a place where you can safely do it, to just take a second and look down at your feet.
Highly recommend.
Yeah, because what you are looking at is staggeringly complex. It is a biological machine built to flawlessly execute 3 really brutal tasks.
Which are?
Well, it has to bear the entire weight of your body fighting gravity. It has to absorb the massive kinetic shock of impacting the ground. And finally, it has to propel your mass forward through space.
So if bipedal locomotion is our defining evolutionary trait, the first thing evolution had to completely re-engineer from our primate ancestors was the architectural foundation, right? The raw materials.
Yes, which means we are dealing with a tremendous amount of bone. To support a bipedal stance, the human foot is actually constructed from 26 individual bones.
26 in just one foot.
In just one foot, you have 7 tarsal bones making up the proximal and intermediate sections, so the rear and midfoot.
Oh.
Then you have 5 metatarsal bones bridging the gap. And finally, 14 phalanges, which are the bones of your toes.
I actually noticed when I was reading up on this that the math there is a little quirky.
How so?
Well, if we have 5 toes, why 14 phalanges? Shouldn't it be 15? 3 per toe.
It's a great observation. Your great toe, the hallux, is actually built differently than the rest of them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it only has 2 phalanges, a proximal and a distal bone. All your other 4 toes have 3.
Ah.
It directly parallels the skeletal structure of your thumb, which also only has 2 main bones.
Wow, that actually makes perfect sense when you think about it.
Yeah.
But keeping track of all these bones, especially those 7 tarsal bones in the back, that seems like a nightmare for medical students.
Oh, it can be.
Because they are all these weird, chunky, asymmetrical rocks. Right?
Yeah, they are heavily robust because they are the primary weight-bearing platform. But there is a classic mnemonic in the medical community that makes tracking them incredibly easy.
Oh, late on me.
It's tiger cubs need MILC. MILC.
Tiger cubs need MILC. Okay, break that down for me.
Sure. So tiger stands for the talus, which sits at the very top. Cubs is the calcaneus, which is your massive heel bone.
Okay, got the heel.
Need is the navicular, and then the MILC covers the rest of the midfoot. That's the medial, intermediate, and lateral cuneiform bones. And finally, C for the cuboid bone.
Tiger cubs need MILC.
Exactly.
That is genuinely brilliant. So we have this platform of bones, right? This MILC foundation. But how does this complex 26 bone platform physically connect to the rest of the leg so it can actually support a human's weight?
Well, that happens at the gateway, which is the talocrural joint. Most people just call it the ankle joint.
Right.
And structurally, it's fascinating. The ankle is a uniaxial hinge joint. The top bone, the talus, sits inside a deep, very secure recess called a mortise.
A mortise.
Yeah. If you've ever done any woodworking or carpentry, you are probably familiar with a mortise and tenon joint.
Oh, absolutely. My grandpa used to do a lot of carpentry. It's one of the strongest ways to join 2 pieces of wood. You carve a deep square hole, which is the mortise in one piece, and a peg the tenon on the other, and you hammer them together. It's designed specifically so the 2 pieces lock and absolutely do not move side to side.
Precisely. In your ankle, that mortise, the recess, is formed by the bottom of your 2 leg bones.
The tibia and fibula.
Yes. The medial malleolus of the tibia, which is that hard bump on the inside of your ankle, and the lateral malleolus of the fibula, the bump on the outside. They wrap around the talus, creating this incredibly deep, structurally locked pocket.
Wait, I'm stuck on something here.
What's that?
So if bipedalism requires us to walk on all kinds of uneven terrain-like rocks, roots, hiking trails, and the ankle is locked tightly into a woodworking joint that restricts side-to-side movement,
Right.
how do our feet have enough give to let us walk on a rocky trail without just snapping the tibia in half?
What's fascinating here is that the structural give you're looking for doesn't come from the ankle joint at all.
Really? Where does it come from?
The ankle's primary job is just dorsiflexion and plantar flexion. It's just acting as a hinge. The ability to adapt to a rocky hiking trail comes from the fact that your foot contains a staggering 31 distinct joints.
31 joints in just one foot.
Yes. While the mortise acts as the primary hinge for forward momentum, the joints directly below it are managing the complex terrain. You have the subtalar joint between the talus and the calcaneus, and the talocalcaneonavicular joint.
That is a mouthful.
It is. But these intertarsal joints allow for a massive range of microadjustments. When you step on a rock, the foot naturally inverts or everts, meaning it tilts inward or outward.
So the ankle hinge drives us forward, but the 31 joints underneath act like independent suspension on a car tire.
That's a really good way to look at it. And it's also where the sharp absorption happens. The bones are arranged into longitudinal and transverse arches.
The arches.
Right. When your foot strikes the ground, the force isn't just driven straight up your leg. The mechanical load forces those arches to flatten slightly.
So they spread out the impact.
Exactly. It physically dissipates the kinetic energy across all those 31 joints, and then the elastic recoil springs the arch back into place, propelling you into your next step.
Okay, so we have 26 bones and 31 joints acting as this brilliant spring-loaded suspension system. But here is the problem.
What's the problem?
A pile of 26 bones with 31 articulation points is basically just a bag of loose gravel.
Well, yes, if there's nothing holding it together.
Right. Under the compressive weight of a human body, it would just collapse. How do we keep the suspension system from blowing out?
That requires an immense amount of binding tape. The massive forces of walking upright require serious ligamentous stabilization.
Ligaments.
Yes. If we look back up at the ankle mortise, we know the bones interlock, but they still need to be lashed together. On the medial side, so the inside of the ankle, you have the medial collateral ligament, widely known as the deltoid ligament.
Okay.
This structure is an absolute powerhouse. It is a dense triangular band consisting of 4 highly durable, distinct parts, physically anchoring the tibia to the bones below.
4 distinct parts just on the inside? That sounds almost over-engineered.
It is incredibly robust. And then, further down into the midfoot, you have even more stabilization.
Like what?
The tarsometatarsal joints are locked together by several ligaments, notably Lisfranc's ligament, which is the absolute strongest interosseous ligament holding that midfoot together.
Wow.
But the real mechanical intrigue happens on the outside of the ankle, the lateral side.
Why? What's on the lateral side?
The lateral collateral ligament. But unlike the massive 4-part deltoid ligament on the inside, the lateral side is only stabilized by 3 separate, comparatively thinner bands.
Just 3 thin ones.
Yeah. The anterior talofibular, the posterior talofibular, and the calcaneofibular ligament.
Wait a second. If the lateral side is noticeably thinner and weaker, Does that explain why almost every time someone rolls their ankle, the foot rolls inward? You know, an inversion sprain.
You've hit the nail on the head. Inversion injuries are the most common ankle injuries precisely because of that structural asymmetry.
That makes so much sense.
The medial side is like an iron wall, but those three lateral ligaments, specifically the anterior talofibular, are highly vulnerable. When you roll your ankle, that is almost always the ligament that partially or completely tears.
Let me try this analogy on you.
Let's hear it.
I picture the ankle joint like a heavy canvas tent that we pitched on the ground, right? On the inside, the medial side, the tent is secured by these thick, heavy-duty industrial bungee cords. That's the deltoid ligament.
Right.
But on the outside, the lateral side, it's secured by thin cotton shoelaces. So if the wind blows the wrong way, which is stepping off a curb wrong, the bungee cords hold fine, but the shoelaces snap immediately.
I see where you're going, and it paints a vivid picture, but it's not quite that extreme of engineering flaw.
It's not.
No, it's less about a literal shoelace snapping and more about how the joint is explicitly engineered for a specific evolutionary purpose.
So what does this all mean? Like, why would evolution leave the outside doors of our ankles essentially unlocked? It seems like massive design oversight if bipedalism is our whole thing.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it wasn't a mistake. It is an evolutionary tax.
A tax.
Yes. We didn't evolve to just stand still. We evolved to walk, jog, and endurance run across the African savanna for miles at a time to tire out prey.
Right, persistence hunting.
Exactly. This ligament design, with its incredible stiffness front to back and a slight weakness laterally, heavily favors forward momentum. To gain that highly efficient, spring-loaded forward speed, we basically had to sacrifice lateral, side-to-side stability.
Wow. So every time I sprain my ankle playing basketball, I'm literally just experiencing the ghost of our evolutionary past.
Basically,
I'm paying the tax for bipedal forward momentum.
exactly. Basketball requires intense lateral side-to-side cutting. Your ankle wasn't optimized for lateral agility. It was optimized to run in a straight line for 4 hours.
That is wild.
So a sudden step in a pothole or a bad pivot exploits that exact evolutionary compromise.
That is fascinating. Okay, so we've got the architectural bones acting as suspension. We've got them taped tightly by the ligaments, paying our evolutionary tax. But bones and ligaments are just inert materials. What actually drives this machine?
Well, we need to go down to the engine room, the muscular system.
The muscles, right.
And the engineering here is wonderfully complex. Basic forward locomotion requires dorsiflexion and plantar flexion.
So pointing the foot up and down.
Right, but the true complexity is hidden inside the foot itself. The sole of your foot isn't just a biological pad of fat. It contains highly intricate, distinct layers of muscle separated into lateral, central, and medial groups by thick fasciae.
Meaning we have distinct engines for different parts of the foot.
Precisely.
Okay.
You have the abductor hallucis solely dedicated to managing the great toe.
Just for the big toe.
Yep. Then you have the abductor digidemum mimi working the little toe, and central muscles doing highly refined, independent work on the middle digits.
But there's a massive challenge here. All these muscles have long, complicated Latin names that make it really tough to visualize how they move the foot.
They do. It's a lot of memorization.
But there's actually a brilliant memory trick for this, right? The second letter rule.
Oh, yes. It is a classic tool for understanding the biomechanics of the lower leg.
I love this rule. Basically, if you want to know what a lower leg muscle does, you just look at the second letter of its anatomical name.
Right.
So muscles, starting with P. erroneus, which are the fibularis muscles on the outside of the leg, they handle E version, turning the foot outward.
Because the second letter is E.
Exactly. And muscles starting with 2 tibialis on the inside of the leg handle I version or inversion, turning the foot inward. Second letter is I. So peroneus for eversion, tibialis for inversion.
It perfectly maps the functional mechanics. Eversion engines pull on the lateral side, inversion engines pull on the medial side.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me, though.
Okay, what's that?
I am picturing the sheer volume of biology crammed into the tiny, tight space of the foot. You've got 26 bones, 31 joints, dozens of ligaments, and these layers of peroneus and tibialis muscles pulling in all these different directions.
It's a crowded space, for sure.
How in the world does the central nervous system coordinate this mechanical chaos? I mean, how do we take a single step without constantly tripping over our own toes?
Because it isn't just a mechanical system, it is a highly advanced sensory array.
Like sensors in the foot.
Exactly. These joints and muscles don't operate blindly. They are wired into a complex neural network, the sural, tibial, saphenous, and fibular nerves. But to really understand the how, we have to look at proprioception.
Proprioception, meaning how the body knows where it is in space.
Exactly. Think of the foot's nervous system as a high-speed fiber optic network. Buried inside those 31 joints and muscle layers are thousands of specialized nerve endings called mechanoreceptors,
Okay.
specifically muscle spindles and Golgi tendon organs.
What are they actually doing when I take a step, like when I walk outside right now?
Well, every millisecond your foot touches the ground, these receptors physically stretch or compress. That mechanical change opens ion channels in the cells, converting the thuggical pressure of a pebble or a sloped sidewalk into an electrical signal.
Wow.
This network reads the exact texture of the ground, the angle of the slope, the tension on the ligaments, and shoots that data up your spinal cord at immense speeds.
So it's feeding real-time telemetry back to the brain.
Better than that. Often it doesn't even need to go all the way to the conscious brain.
Wait, really?
Yeah. The spinal cord processes these signals in reflex loops and instantly sends motor commands back down to the peroneus or tibialis muscles, adjusting their tension on the fly.
That is incredible.
That is how you can step on a piece of uneven gravel in your driveway, and your foot perfectly adjusts its eversion and inversion in milliseconds without you ever looking down.
The subconscious processing power required just to walk to the mailbox is staggering. It's like a symphony of biofeedback.
It is the absolute pinnacle of bipedal engineering. Bones, ligaments, muscles, and this high-speed proprioceptive network all operating flawlessly.
Which brings up a very important, slightly darker reality.
Yeah.
We've laid out how perfect this machine is when it works. But what happens when this perfectly engineered machine is assembled slightly out of alignment from birth? You know, when the factory settings are just slightly off.
It highlights just how delicate the system is. Embryological development is incredibly complex, and occasionally the mechanical alignment is disrupted. Clinically, this presents as congenital talipes equinovarus.
Which most people know as clubfoot.
Correct. Mechanically, clubfoot is a condition where that incredibly complex structure we've been discussing is physically rotated out of its functional position.
Rotated how?
Specifically, the foot is inverted, so it's turned sharply inward. The ankle is plantar flexed, meaning the toes are permanently pointed downward, and the joints where the toes meet the midfoot are adducted, meaning they're pulled sharply toward the midline of the body.
But if bipedalism relies on the heel striking the ground and the arches absorbing the shock, if the foot is rotated inward and pointed downward, that entire suspension system is useless.
Entirely bypassed. If left untreated, when a child with clubfoot attempts to walk, their body weight isn't distributed over the broad, shock-absorbing plantar fascia. Instead, the entire mechanical load of the human body is forced onto the lateral surface of the foot.
They're essentially walking on the outside edge.
Exactly.
It makes me think of driving a car with a severely misaligned tire. The engine, which is the muscles, might be working perfectly. The chassis, the bones, are structurally sound.
Right.
But because that tire is hitting the asphalt at a completely wrong angle, it doesn't matter. The physical weight isn't distributing the way the engineers designed it. Eventually, walking on the side of the cuboid bone, which wasn't built for that load, will cause immense pain and structural failure.
This raises an important question, though. It seems like a permanent mechanical failure, but it actually highlights one of the most beautiful features of human anatomy, which is biological plasticity. Plasticity?
Yeah. Because we understand exactly how this bipedal machine is supposed to be aligned, we can fix it without necessarily doing invasive surgery.
How do you fix a misaligned chassis without surgery?
By leveraging the fact that infant anatomy isn't fixed stone, it is living, adaptable tissue.
Oh, because they're still growing.
Right. Specifically, the collagen that makes up those dense ligaments, the deltoid, the lateral collaterals, is highly malleable in infants. Physicians use a serial casting method.
Serial casting?
Yes. By applying a cast, they gently stretch the ligaments on the medial side and allow the lateral side to tighten.
So they're slowly remolding the entire 26 bone structure?
Yes. Week by week, the cast is changed, adjusting the angle slightly. Thanks to Wolff's law, which dictates that bone adapts to the physical pressures placed upon it, the 31 intertarsal joints literally reshape themselves.
That is amazing.
We steer the misaligned tire back onto the flat part of the road while the biological chassis is still soft enough to adapt to the correct bipedal position. That is just incredible. The human body's ability to mechanically remodel its own engineering based on applied pressure is mind-blowing.
It really is.
Okay, let's take a breath and recap the journey we've been on in this deep dive. We started with the sheer architectural wonder of the 26-foot bones and that highly secure woodworking mortise joint of the ankle. We explored how the 31 independent joints act as our spring-loaded suspension system.
And we looked at the critical binding tape, the ligaments, and realized that our vulnerability to lateral ankle sprains isn't a design flaw, but an evolutionary tax we pay for forward speed.
Right. Then we dropped into the engine room, learning the second letter rule for the muscles proteins for aversion, tibialis for inversion. We saw how a high-speed fiber optic network of mechanoreceptors keeps us from constantly tripping over our own feet.
And finally, we saw how delicate this alignment is, but also how wonderfully adaptable living tissue can be when correcting conditions like clubfoot.
It is the remarkable culmination of millions of years of evolutionary engineering.
Absolutely.
So, to you listening, the next time you stand up from your desk or walk to the kitchen, take one single second to picture what is happening inside your shoes. Picture those 31 joints dynamically adjusting to the floor, the ligaments holding strong, and that high-speed sensory network firing in perfect subconscious harmony just to keep you upright against gravity. It's an absolute miracle of biomechanics happening every single time you take a step.
And I'll leave you with a final thought to mull over.
Oh, please do.
If the brutal demands of bipedalism on rugged, wild, uneven terrain are what drove the evolution of the human foot to become this incredibly complex, highly specialized, shock-absorbing machine, what is the human foot going to look like thousands of years from now?
Ooh.
Given that our primary modes of movement today mostly involve sitting in office chairs, and when we do walk, it is on perfectly flat, artificial, paved concrete, will we retain those 31 joints, or will evolution eventually decide we don't need the micro-adjustments anymore?
Oh, wow. Now that is something to think about the next time you're walking down a perfectly flat sidewalk. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.